Welcome to Bloom Day 90 Facilitation video. First, make sure to arrive early and start exactly on time. If it's at 8 a.m., be ready by 7:57 a.m. Ensure everyone has their coffee and water, has used the bathroom, and has their check-in sheet filled out in advance. Make sure it's in front of them and that everyone is comfortable. Your technology should be set up for over half an hour before anyone arrives, and you've tested it before the first leadership team member gets there. You've been in the room for an hour before the start time to make sure everything works perfectly. You might even rewatch this video in the morning to keep it fresh in your memory. Whatever your learning style is, make sure you're over-prepared, especially for the first 20 clients you take on. It's important to maintain a beginner's mindset, showing up with humility, and embrace being a lifelong learner. By humble, I mean avoiding a know-it-all attitude. Preparation is key, especially given the investment clients make in these sessions. For these first 20 clients, you are paid significantly more than the average facilitator, trainer, or coach, sometimes even 2, 3, or 4 times as much, potentially earning up to $5,000 a day. Treat their time and money with respect by being over-prepared. Now, the clock starts at 8 a.m. You're going to start by setting the table. Metaphorically, setting the table means sharing what your outcome as a coach is for the day, your intentions for how you will show up, and your invitation for how they will show up as a team and participate. You should prepare a few bullet points in advance so that you're not just speaking off the top of your head. Right after you share yours, you are going to ask each of them to do the same. For example, I might say, the most important thing for me is that all of your outcomes are met and that we have a ridiculously good time while doing it. That's my most important outcome. How I invite all of you to show up today is as a team of strategic leaders thinking about the whole working for the greater good of the business. I sometimes refer to this as the God view, where you're looking down on all geographies, all people, all projects, all clients, and all vendors of your business. Please do not be in our conversations today as a department head or as someone who leads just one part of the business. We will do much higher quality work, and it will go faster if all of you commit to showing up as strategic leaders for the greater good of the business, participating equally in every conversation. I want operations in the sales and marketing conversation, I want the visionary in the finance conversation, and I want finance in the operations conversation. I am saying all of these words and taking a lot of the air here in the first 5 to 8 minutes of the session. This is how we set the table. It's what we do to ensure you're doing a powerful thing here. It's enrolling, it generates excitement, we are having a ridiculously good time, and it gets people leaning into the conversation. When I say having a ridiculously good time, I mean, what are we even doing going through this process if we're not having a ridiculously good time? I'm not committed to doing it any other way, and that's how I invite you to show up. I'm committed to showing up fully present today. So let's talk a little bit about distractions. Day 90 is the first day that I can recommend all leadership team members bring their technology. On day 1, they don't know how to run Bloom Growth software yet. On days 30 and 60, we're not resetting quarterly priorities, and there's not a lot of time saved by having them all bring their tech. But on day 90, and every time after this, it's appropriate to have tech in the room. It'll save you time and energy in facilitating the day. In the future, as we optimize the software, using tech in the room on days 1, 60 will save you and your clients time. Until then, I recommend you wait until day 90 to have tech in the room with all notifications off, ideally in airport mode. After that, I say, fantastic, let's go ahead. You can open up your client workbook, and we're going to go through the journey and the agenda quickly. In each workbook, there will be a section that says, you are here, pointing to day 90. You can say, hey, get your pens ready, fully participate, and circle day 90. That's where we're at today. After this, we will set up our regular rhythm for the 4 times a year we're together, including the additional 2-day annual. By the end of today, we'll get everything set up. But for now, this is where we're at. Think of it as wrapping up the setup days, ensuring everything is ready to share with your entire company. Remember, most of the clients decide to roll out Bloom Growth to the whole company after day 90. A few prefer to wait for another quarter, keeping it a leadership team project until the first quarterly. Those are your choices as a coach. You can advocate for them to go faster or slower, depending on whether you think they're ready. If they're behind, you might say something like, hey, given how crucial some of these decisions are, it might make sense for you to go a bit slower on the rollout. Maybe we consider pushing the Bloom Growth rollout and announcement just after the first quarterly. What do you think? This is a gentle way to guide them to schedule their first all-org gathering just after the first quarterly for the rollout based on their situation. If the opposite is true and the team is super sharp, has been moving fast, and has been on point for the first 3 days, and if you've had a call before this session and know they're really on fire, then you can say, you guys are moving through these tools so fast. I'm completely on board with you rolling it out after day 90. I think you're one of the teams that roll it out after day 90. We'll discuss that in more detail later today. For now, let's look at the agenda real quick. After the Bloom growth journey and outcomes, which we just reviewed, we're going to do the check-in and build our O&O list. I see some of you have printed it and brought it along, or have it on your phone or computer. Either option is fine. We'll build the most comprehensive O&O list you've ever built, and we're going to get connected around all the great things happening. Next, we'll review the previous quarter priorities to determine your percentage of completion rate. We will also review your finance and numbers to determine if we are on track to hit our goals and do a quick temperature check on culture. Here, we're going to review the past and gather O&Os from these conversations. After that, we'll affirm the growth plan and the core values. Next, we'll set new quarterly priorities. We'll want to look through the growth plan 3-year future, annual goals, and O&O list because they help us afterward to get grounded for the reset of the quarterly priorities while everything is fresh in our minds. After setting quarterly priorities, we'll take a few minutes to prioritize and clean up the O&O list. Some items will be removed after we set quarterly priorities, others will be 3D. Discover, discuss, and decide during your Bloom weekly meeting, and yet others will be added to the parking lot to be reviewed in coming months. Then we will finalize the ideal leadership team structure. We'll all provide a thumbs up if we're aligned on the structure today. And finally, we're doing the Elevate Relationships exercise. We will train them on the all-org gathering, Bloom weekly meeting, and wrap up the day. All of this is time budgeted in the coach workbook. It's a full day. If you find yourself with extra time by some facilitation miracle, you can always dive deeper into 3D. Discover, discuss, and decide. We're also going to wrap up by saying nice things to each other. So that's the agenda. Now, I'll circle back and say we did the journey and we went through the agenda. Let's go right into setting expectations and outcomes. Now, you're going to go around the room. Everybody's going to have their check-in open, either on their laptop, tablet, or phone, or they're going to have a piece of paper. Be sure to touch on the distractions that tech can bring. If everyone already has their tech open, and some people are using their screens for their check-in sheets, coach them through silencing all notifications and getting their tech into airplane mode. At the same time, I always take out my own phone, put it into airplane mode, and enable Do Not Disturb. I make sure to show them that I'm doing this, demonstrating without being condescending. It's about making it clear. Hey, I'm following my own rules. I am with you, we're in this together. There are no exceptions to the rules. Then say, I'd love everyone to write down or say out loud your outcome and expectations for today FIs. You don't need to time this part, it moves quickly. It should take around 20 to 30 seconds each. If someone is taking too long, there are some facilitation techniques you can use. One approach I use is a hand gesture where I point to the next person, shifting my eye contact from the person talking too much to the next person. This helps move things along without a verbal interruption, which can be less smooth. Instead, use your eye contact and body language to signal the transition gracefully. Okay, so you go around the room. Everyone takes about 30 seconds. Be attentive to the outcomes and expectations that they want. Make sure everything aligns with our objectives and the agenda for the day. If someone says, I can't wait to do X, Y, and Z, but it's not on the agenda, you want to get alignment right then and there. For example, hey, Fred, just so you know, that's not something we're covering today, but we will be next time. I'm happy to put it on the O&O list right now if you'd like. I want to make sure that's not lost. It's a really good idea, and we will definitely cover that together. Are you okay with that? Get a commitment right away that they're willing to adjust their expectations to align with today's agenda. You need to be actively listening here. You can't zone out and just wait for the next agenda item. Great, we just reviewed the Bloom growth journey and outcomes, so we can check that first item off. All right, let's move on to the check-in. You can start by saying, you've done this check-in before. What's different is that we're going to gather a significant number of obstacles and opportunities, O&O. We will continue with the remainder of what you have written on your check-in sheet. Before the session starts, ensure you've prepared the most meaningful thing that happened in your personal and professional life and why it matters. You are only sharing your personal and professional things. You are not sharing anything else from the check-in sheet. It's crucial to prepare these in advance so that you can fully focus on listening during the session. We'll do 2 rounds of this check-in. The first round will focus on positive highlights, tells. Each participant will share their good news. We'll also ask about the Bloom Growth OS. What's been the most valuable and effective part we've worked on so far? What's one part we could level up today? And give shout-outs to 1-3 people in the organization. Remind them of the time limit and set a timer for each person. You can use any app, but I recommend Timer Plus. It has a gentle meditation chime that works well for these sessions. The rule is that participants cannot shut off the timer until they finish talking. Once their turn is complete, they pass the timer to the next person. Each participant gets 3 minutes to share all the good things. Encourage them to celebrate these moments enthusiastically. Typically, I go last to share my personal and professional highlights without sharing any other details from the check-in sheet as the coach. After the wins round, we'll move directly into building our O&O list. This is where the second round of the check-in happens. Now it's your turn to coach them. Ask everyone if they are logged into Bloom Growth software. Just before 8 a.m., make sure everyone is logged in. This is one of the things you should be checking during the 15 minutes before the session starts. You should also have the day's agenda ready in Bloom Growth. Remind the group that the goal here is to build the most comprehensive O&O list to help us build a bigger, better business. Every single item that you added to the bottom half of the check-in sheet during the session should now be added into Bloom Growth's O&O section. This is where you proceed. Encourage everyone to add a minimum of 6 to 10 items. If someone only added 3, point them back to their check-in sheet and help them identify where to pull from. Say something like, "You see how you have an answer in each one of these sections? Let's get one obstacle or opportunity for each of them." Ask for specificity. For the people move, make sure they include a name and action. Whether it's hire, fire, promotion, or training, this is about capturing real high-impact moves. For the highest impact people move, think of it as what we do if we had all the time and courage in the world. It could be our most impactful next hire, the person we'd most want to let go, or someone whose role we need to change. Please add it. Let's not hold back. We're on day 90. We've built trust, so everyone should put something uncomfortable on the list. If your computer is projecting to the screen in the room, you can demonstrate which buttons they need to click. Click here, type in the 3 thesis words, and hit return. Then we're going to sort the O&O list by owner and have everyone move quickly through them. Be sure to add something for everything you prepared, otherwise there won't be a conversation queue for you to discuss it. For anything that's the elephant in the room, add a little E in front of it so we know it's an elephant for the biggest opportunities for growth. Whether it's revenue or profit, make sure to label them clearly so we can easily identify them. We need the 3 thesis words. Especially when you increase the font size within Bloom, only the first 3 words will reliably be visible on the O&O list. Make sure these first 3 words summarize the O&O completely. Even if they aren't a full grammatically correct sentence, that's perfectly okay. So, everyone start doing this. Of course, half the room will already have started by the time you're halfway through explaining. Now get the other half started. Walk around the room, help them out with where to click and how save it. You can move to the O&O list on the agenda within Bloom Growth software and have it displayed on the board. You can sort it by most recent so that each time someone adds something, it's visible on the screen, constantly updating. The list will grow quickly because you've got 6 people adding items simultaneously. Once most of the items are added, go over and change the sorting to by owner so you can see how much each leader has contributed. When they get to the process section, prompt them with, "What's one process that's not working right now?" If someone says communication, ask them where it's breaking down, get to the root. On the KPI question, ask, "What's the KPI you have the hardest time keeping in the green and why?" That answer is likely tied to something deeper. Make sure it's on the list. When you reach the part about top opportunities, guide them. What are the top 2 to 4 specific opportunities we can act on across the organization to increase profit or growth? If they wrote something vague, help them get specific. You'll need to work the room. Walk around, look over their shoulders, just like a teacher. Say, did you get that added? Or notice and comment, wow, that's great. Is that already in there? If they say, yeah, I already got that in there, you can add, oh, I didn't see it. Could you go back and add that word too so it's clear? You're working the room, managing the screen, building momentum, keeping everyone engaged, and adding as much as possible. When most have added their items, say, okay, everyone add one more. Can we get one more? Do I hear one more? The goal is to build the most comprehensive, open, and honest O&O list you've ever built. It goes fast when you've got 6 people typing and you're moving around the room, encouraging, helping, and pointing out where to click in the software. Once everything is added, sort the list by leader, and it'll be in alphabetical order. Start with the person closest to the beginning of the alphabet and say, all right, Aaron, go ahead and run through your items. Explain what each one means. Everyone else, stop thinking about yours for a moment and focus on Aaron's. Look at the 3 thesis words and understand what they mean. If something isn't clear, ask right away, even if it means interrupting. Say specifically, hey, do you mean this or that? If needed, ask to change the wording for clarity. This step is about the whole room getting quickly on the same page about all the obstacles and opportunities. You don't need to deduplicate the list or combine similar items right now. Just ensure everyone explains their additions and that everyone else understands. We're going to use these to set new quarterly priorities in just a bit. Okay, great job. You're doing amazing. Once complete, have the team return to page 1 and check off check-in and build O&O list. The outcome you're aiming for is to capture about 2 obstacles or opportunities here, 1 to 2 from the review of previous quarterly priorities and the same from the KPIs. Anything under 90% or over 110% should be discussed. If their prediction or execution was off by more than 10%, find out why. Whether it was good or bad, we need to understand the cause. We start by reviewing the previous quarter's KPIs and quarterly priorities because the check-in where we build the O&O list is all about the future, and we want to get their minds out of the past before diving into future planning. We will go over the KPIs for the previous quarter and do some quick calculations. You can see this is where they'll all be writing down the KPIs. They may not have all the information perfectly ready, and that's okay, it's their first time. However, each time we do this, I expect them to become more precise, proactive, and prepared. By the time we're a year into this, I want them to feel proud and be saying things like, we're 15 out of 18, that's 83%. We're 5 out of 7 on company goals, which is 71%. Here's our KPIs goals to actuals and the calculated percentages. Here are the obstacles and opportunities that came out of this review, 3 of them, which we identified and talked about 3 days ago. They're already on our O&O list. And my response will be, you guys are on fire. Now that we're a year into this process, you're really great. Typically, the finance or admin person is the one who comes ultra prepared with this information. Sometimes it's the ops person or the integrator. It's unlikely to be the visionary or the sales and marketing leader, as they tend to be more focused on the big picture and less on follow-through. These are not rules, they are stereotypes, but stereotypes often have some basis, in fact. Then you'll do a culture check-in where they share an adjective or emotion about the culture. Listen closely for anything negative, and make sure to add at least 1 item to the O&O list that comes from this culture discussion. On average, you'll add 2, but you can add 3 or even 4 if you think it's needed. Generally, you'll find out about 1 key thing from this culture check-in. You want to keep this as quick as possible. The culture check-in will mostly include positive things. However, if someone says something tentative, don't ignore it. For example, Mary, what exactly do you mean by X? That's interesting. Well, we had that meeting last week and nobody was very participatory. Something's going on. What other emotions would you put to it? Was there anyone else involved? Yeah, Joe was in the meeting too. Joe, what was your feeling? What would you say? You need to dig around a bit. Find the root cause and get that obstacle or opportunity on the list as well. The review of the previous quarter is budgeted for 30 minutes, but you want to do it as fast as possible. If anyone has 100% of their quarterly priorities completed, make sure there is a visual celebration, whether snapping fingers or clapping so there's some energy in the room. The people who stayed up until 2 a.m. to finish appreciate being recognized in front of the team. Let everyone else share their percentages. 3 out of 4, that's 75%. Get these things out loud and in the open, and recognize the people who did exceptionally well to motivate others to aim for 100% next quarter. If there's a big success story on one of the KPIs, let them share it for 30 seconds. Fred, you're at 150% of the goal. Tell me about it. Maybe we should be raising the goal? Everyone might laugh a bit, and Fred will likely say, that was a one-off event this quarter. We can't replicate it. Please don't raise my goal. Have a real lighthearted conversation. Capture the obstacles and opportunities for the O&O list. Have fun, celebrate wins. Tell them how great they're doing. Remember, the top 2 love languages that tend to resonate with most people are physical touch and words of affirmation. For leadership team members, about 70% have words of affirmation in their top 2, so make sure to use that to encourage and motivate them. Make sure you're praising them throughout this review. Emphasize a sense of winning, accomplishment, and progress. Point out the wins. Be sure they understand that 80% completion is a win. That's an A+ performance when it comes to quarterly priorities. I also like to go to the board and say, hey, can I share with you how this usually turns out? For the first set of quarterly priorities, the ones you just wrapped up, my average team gets about 50% done. You guys came in at 63%. You're above average compared to the teams I've coached for their first set. Now, for the next set, my average team comes in at 65% complete on their quarterly priorities. By the third time, they usually get to 80%. There are 2 levers here, predicting well and executing well. And I don't know if the reason you came in at 63% was due to not predicting well, or if it was because of execution challenges. But we're gonna figure this out together over time. Your ability to predict and your ability to execute are critical. Execution is like project management, doing what you say you'll do every 7 days. We always say that quarterly priorities need to move forward by 10% each week. It's just math. There are 13 weeks in a quarter, but with vacations and busy weeks, you realistically have about 10 weeks to get these quarterly priorities done. So, 100% divided by 10 weeks is 10% progress per week. Anytime you're in your weekly meeting and don't achieve that 10% progress, add it to the O&O list and work together as a team to get back on track. This is what execution looks like, and it's about helping each other win. This isn't an individual sport, it's about teamwork, though individual accountability is also key. All right, well, that's exciting. This time is budgeted for 30 minutes, which is more than enough. You can likely finish this in 20 minutes and be 10 minutes ahead of schedule. Or if the check-in runs long, you might need to make up those minutes here. Just be sure to add the 3, 4, or 5 obstacles or opportunities you identify together from here. Have a little celebration, tell them how much they're winning, and give them confidence they are on track. Okay, sweet, we got that done. Let's go back and check that off. I know someone in the room loves checking these boxes. The next thing you're gonna do is affirm the growth plan and core values. The core values are not on the growth plan in the client workbook. That's why they are listed separately. This includes reviewing the core values, the what, how, and why, the 5-year vision, and the 3-year future. You're making sure all these elements are fit for presentation to the company, pressure testing them, in a way. What you're doing here is getting everyone ready to roll out Bloom Growth across the entire company. Imagine 75 people gathered for lunch, free pizza, or breakfast sandwiches, all huddled around for the big reveal. We have a lot of these elements available to use in a PowerPoint presentation, and you'll have the North Star document that we'll be signing today to share with the team as well. If there are only 12 people in the company, maybe you'll keep it simple, drawing on a whiteboard. It's up to you. Right at the end of the day, you'll plan the logistics for the all-company gathering. But for now, your job is to make sure that all the pieces of the growth plan, including the 1-year goals and core values, are ready for presentation to the entire company. Most of the time, you're just affirming that they're good enough. Often we set these to be 70%, 80%, or 90% good during the first or second time. Now, you might be on your second, third, or even fourth time revisiting these things. Some of this work was done on day 1, and now it's day 90, meaning you've talked about it several times. I'd say about 8 out of 10 items you touch on will be good just as they are, and the team will actually be patting themselves on the back saying, man, I've loved that since the first day we created the what, how, and why. But there will always be a few elements that need some deeper work. Maybe 2 or 3 things are incomplete or have fresh thinking that needs refinement. This is the time to go down that rabbit hole, to spend a quality 60 minutes updating, revising, and polishing these pieces. It's incredibly valuable, and you want to make sure these essentials get to 100%. Imagine that out of 10 or 12 meaningful parts of this agenda, about 3 need to be polished and significantly improved. So this is where you step in. You're not just using the workbook, you're pulling it up on the screen, sitting at your laptop, and making changes in real time directly in Bloom Growth. The core values are right there, and you're working on them. Make sure the team is comfortable with these core values as a filter for people's decisions. Once that's done, go ahead and check off the Affirm the Plan a Core Values box. Checking these items off is super satisfying and helps keep people psychologically engaged. They see the progress being made, and it's motivating. Now we're moving on to resetting the quarterly priorities. Before we start, let's take a look through the annual goals. You can see them right here. I want us to get present to the annual goals. Sometimes I say if your brain is like a computer, you want to load these into your RAM. We're going to pop over to the growth plan in the Bloom Growth software. Pull up that plan and go right to the annual goals we set last time we were together. They might have forgotten some of them. That's okay. Your job is to get the whole room present to these goals again. In some cases, I'll say, we use quarterly priorities to move these annual goals forward. Who's going to take a quarterly priority related to this annual goal today? Erin, you're on that one. Great. Who's taking one for this goal? Sally, that's yours. Who's taking one for this? Sometimes someone might say, that annual goal doesn't seem relevant anymore. That's fine. You can respond with, okay, let's add that to the O&O list and we'll handle it later. We're not diving deep into any of these right now. We're just getting present to the 6 or 7 annual goals we set last time and getting a rough idea of who will own a quarterly priority related to each one. Make it clear to them that there should be a quarterly priority connected to every annual goal where it makes sense. This should take less than a minute per annual goal. So, if there are 6 goals, that's about 6 minutes for this review. Next, mention the upcoming session date. Many Bloom Growth coaches prefer to schedule the next session right at this point. It's a very logical time to do it. You want to be quick about it. Everyone, pull out your calendar. Let's figure out the next meeting date. We'll meet early in the next quarter, so this will be like a 15-week session. Let's aim for early April. Can we set the date right now? Is April 5th good? Okay, does that work for everyone? Great. It works for my calendar as well. Everyone, put that in your calendar now. Who's going to send out the calendar reminders? Add me to that reminder, please. I'll also add it to mine. Okay, everyone set? Write April 5th down where it says date in your workbook. So that's what we're doing. Now, let's read the next sentence out loud together as a group. So what I'd like you to do right now, with all of your text still open, look through the growth plan. Here's how to get there. Show them on your computer, up on the big screen, go right here. Here's where you find the 3-year future that we did, the annual goals we just reviewed, and here's where you find the O&O list in Bloom Growth. Use all 3 of these resources, your 3-year future, the annual goals, and the O&O list, along with your common sense. Additionally, please look at your client workbook where each of you has already been assigned a quarterly priority to create your department's org chart with roles and responsibilities. This is to be done in partnership with your direct reports rather than you creating it with an assumption that you fully know the top 5 roles and responsibilities of your direct report. This is a conversation you are having with each of your team members, then add it to the software. Next, write down the top 5 most important things for the entire organization to accomplish by the date we just set, April 5th. Whether it's an 11-week sprint to get on their preferred rhythm or a longer 15-week period, it doesn't matter much. You'll find out the rhythm that works and go from there. I brainstorm and usually come up with 9 to 13 ideas. I just write down the brainstorm in the blanks at the top, then come back to narrow it down to the top 5, numbering them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because I'm a visionary, sometimes I choose 6. I break the rules. If anyone's breaking the rules, it's probably the visionary or the sales and marketing leader. You don't have to invite them to break the rules, they'll do it on their own. Don't be surprised, and don't make them feel wrong for it. I always have a little fun at their expense, use a bit of sarcasm, but never in a way that puts them down. It's all about using humor in your life, not just as a Bloom Growth coach, but in general. Find ways to use humor that builds people up. It doesn't take much skill to tear others down. You don't want to be known for making people feel bad. I love sarcasm, but use it to build people up. It might sound something like, well, of course you've got 6, Mr. Visionary, because you've got all these great ideas. Use your humor to lift people up. Master this in all your relationships and your life will be better. I tell my kids all the time, it takes a pretty small person to tear others down, but it takes a smart, big-hearted person to be funny and lift people up at the same time. We're aiming for nothing less. Now, you've picked your top 5 priorities. Once you have them, make them specific and measurable. State by April 5th, or whatever the date is, and include how you will measure this or what the milestone will be. In some cases, done is enough. In others, you'll need more detail. Have them write down their top 5 on this current page. Do not move on to the next page yet. We'll fill those in together as a group activity. This page should be a mess, scribbles everywhere, arrows, notes written at strange angles, and that's exactly what you want. The goal is to get everyone on the field playing the game fully engaged. Add your energy to this. As a new Bloom growth coach, please do the activity yourself too. You're a bit like a double check. Use your common sense, even though you're not directly involved in their business, and don't be surprised, you'll be able to predict almost 100% of the goals they choose. If you're listening the way I'm coaching you to listen, by being hyper-present and you bring all this great experience with you, you're gonna be nearly spot on every time. Sometimes what you come up with is something they missed or was in their blind spot, and thank goodness you did the exercise too because you helped them catch something. That's a little extra value, even if it bleeds into consulting territory. Don't mention that part, just keep it to yourself. Now, assuming you're in person, you're gonna collect the top 5 from everyone and write them on a board. Start with someone who hasn't started anything today. Don't always start with the same person each time. Ask who hasn't started something yet today. Okay, great. Give me your 5, just the headlines, 3 to 5 words. Then I write it on the board. Great, now give me your second one quickly. I keep writing as fast as I can. Next one, third, then the 4th, then the 5th. If something isn't clear from the headline, have them briefly explain what they meant. Then move on to the next person and write theirs beside the first. The first thing you want from them is to identify any duplicates in spirit compared to what's already on the board. Make sure you number the list, don't just use bullet points. What I want from the second person is to look at the board and say, I have duplicates for 2, 3, and 5. Perfect. I put a dot next to 2, 3, and 5. Then I go back and say, what's your specific measurable outcome for number 2? They might say, I think we could measure it like this. I just add 2 extra words to make sure they feel heard. For number 3, how did you suggest we measure it? Oh, exactly like Aaron said we should measure it. Okay, great. For number 4, what did you think? Well, I had a slightly different idea. I thought we could measure it like this. Okay, great. Now, what are your other 2? I write down number 6 under number 5. Give me the headline for your first new one that wasn't a duplicate. I write it down. As they explain it to the room, I keep writing, okay, what's your other new one? I write number 7 on the board, give me the headline. I write it as they explain what it means. I actually have one more. All right, give it to me. This will be number 8. I write it down. Then I move to the next person and say, you get it by now, right? It's our second time setting quarterly priorities. You just watched 2 of your teammates do it. Out of all 5 of your priorities, which ones are duplicates in spirit of any of these 8 we already have on the board? They might say, you're not gonna believe it, I have 4 out of my 5 as duplicates. And I say, this is great news. It shows alignment as a team, and I love how much overlap there is here. Which ones are duplicates? They say, it's 2, 3, 4, and 5. Wow, okay, what do you have for measurement on number 2? Same as I just wrote. Okay, great. How about number 3? Oh, you had something different? That's an interesting idea for how to measure it. I'm glad I asked, what about 4? And 5. Okay, now, what's your fresh one? I write number 9 down at the bottom of the list. Give me your fresh one. Awesome, share with the room what it means. Okay, great, let's move on to the next person. They say, 3 of mine are duplicates, but I have 2 new ones. Perfect, those are going to be numbers 10 and 11. The next person might say, all of mine are already up there. You're so in sync with each other. Which ones are they? Call out the numbers. I put dots next to them. Is there anything you want to share about how you made each one measurable? Since you asked them to do the work, let them show off a little bit. We keep going around the room until it's all up there. If you've got a 6-person team, you may end up with 3 of these items having 4 or 5 dots next to them. Nearly everyone in the room suggested these 3 things. I grab a different color marker and say, usually the first 3 priorities naturally emerge from this exercise. These are going to be the key parts of our company's quarterly priorities, the most important things. Remember, we can pick up to 7 priorities. So which 3 are the obvious ones? Just call them out. They might say number 2, 3, and 5, those are the ones. Great, now let's start at the top of the list. I'm going to ask you the same question repeatedly. Is this one here a top 7 priority for the entire company for the whole quarter? Yes or no? It could still be a departmental quarterly priority, but are we going to call it one of our top 7 company quarterly priorities? No, it's not, especially if it's only one person who chose it. Numbers 2, 3, and 5 are already chosen, so let's pop down to number 4. Number 4 has 2 dots next to it. Is this going to be one of the top 7 most important things for the entire company this quarter? Somebody says, yeah, I think it is. But maybe measured, like I said, not like Sally suggested. Sally gives them a look, and I add, I thought we'd go with Sally's way of measuring it, whatever it is. The point is, it's in our top 7, right? I'm working to make sure the room agrees. Okay, so we're going to include this one. I put a number 4 next to it and then move on to number 6. How about this one? Is this going to be one of the top 7 most important things for the entire company this quarter? Just as a reminder, we've already picked 4, so we could have up to 3 more. But I think 5 or 6 is a really solid number. We don't necessarily have to pick 3 more. Let's look at the rest of the list and decide which 1 or 2 more we want to include. Okay, this one is probably a departmental quarterly priority. You're saying this is number 6? How about number 7? Yeah, number 7 has to be a company priority. Okay, say no more. I'm making that number 5. Right about now, or maybe even before we start this part, I take the eraser and erase the original numbers. I put the numbers up there initially to help everyone identify duplicates, but now it's starting to get confusing. I'm writing a different set of numbers next to each priority. So when I say number 5, they're not sure if it's the number 5 from the fresh color we're using for company quarterly priorities, or if it's the original number 5 from earlier. So you may want to erase the original numbers before starting this prioritization exercise, just to avoid confusion. Then continue working through the entire list. Ideally, you end up with 5 or 6 priorities. In some cases, you may have 7, and that's perfectly fine. Okay, awesome. Let's go ahead and transfer these. Now, you'll sit down at your computer, bring up the Bloom Growth software, and have it projected on the screen. You're now training them on how to enter a quarterly priority. At the top, hit this plus sign. You'll see a new bar appear. Adjust the date to April 5th. Now, let's assign ownership. Who's going to own this one? Remember, this is the one we now have as number 1. It was the original number 2, but it's now prioritized as number 1. Who's going to own this one? Aaron's owning this one, right? Already covered it. Okay, Aaron, I'll put the date in there, and it's a company quarterly priority. Everyone see where these drop-downs are? This is where we'll write the specifics and measurables up here. Now, what's a logical headline for this? 3 words or less. Write those 3 words, put a colon, and then ask, okay, on April 5th, what's the outcome? What's the result or milestone if it's not going to be fully completed by then? Facilitate a conversation about it, ideally for 5 minutes or less. As a new Bloom growth coach, you could even start a timer and manage yourself this way. Your choice. But try not to let the conversation go on for 20 minutes, as it could blow your whole agenda for the day. If it starts to stretch out, it means they're diving into project management planning. This is where you need to step in, kindly but firmly, and say, hey, I love all of you, but we didn't budget time for a full project management session. You've got 13 weeks to sort out the plan. Right now, let's just nail down the outcome. I think we've spent nearly 10 minutes on this and you've got it figured out. What's a specific measurable outcome that'll be true on April 5th? Remember, we just need a specific measurable outcome, and all the other details can be handled in their project planning. Keep it quick, hopefully 5 minutes or less. As you type it in, show them the style convention, 3 thesis words or less followed by a colon, then the specific details. Assign the who, change the date, and make sure it's set as a company quarterly priority. Also, show them how if they keep their cursor in the dialog box, they can just hit enter or return to save. Alternatively, they can scroll down and click save at the bottom. Okay, great, let's move on to number 2. As we build some momentum and facilitate to keep things on track, it's crucial not to let them dictate the pace. Otherwise, the entire day's agenda could be thrown off. Encourage them with praise like, "God, you guys are doing great. You're doing it perfectly." Keep praising them and reminding them of the progress they're making. Emphasize how much smoother this is compared to day one. They might say, "Well, we really didn't have any context on day one," to which you can respond, "You did great then, and you're doing even better now." Let's keep moving. Once you finish all the company's quarterly priorities while modeling the behavior of writing specific measurable outcomes with headlines, now it's time to turn them loose. As you're putting these into the software, make sure to ask everyone to copy what you're writing into their own workbook and add the person's name next to it. You want this level of engagement, it keeps everyone involved and it goes faster, plus you'll have fewer hecklers if you keep them busy writing. It also makes them commit to it on a subconscious psychological level when they write it down themselves. If they only picked 5 priorities, have them put X's through 6 and 7, maybe add a big smiley face or something like that. Now that everything is set, it's time to move on to departmental priorities for the quarter. You'll see on the screen in Bloom Growth how many quarterly priorities each person has. Ideally, I believe that each leader in the room should have 3 or 4 quarterly priorities, which includes the quarterly priority. Each leadership team has to create their department's org chart. If someone already has 2 of the company priorities, I say, at minimum, take 1 more significant priority, but at most 2 more. For this part, you'll refer back to the 3-year vision, the annual goals, and the entire O&O list. Make sure not to pick anything that overlaps with the KPIs, since there will be separate quarterly KPI goals at the top. You see those KPI goals on the growth plan, right? If they don't have the numbers available, say, "Could I assign someone here a to-do?" Go to Finance or the spreadsheet where you keep these KPI goals and fill this in. Assign someone a task in Bloom Growth software to handle this after your session. Fabulous! So everyone is looking for 3 or 4 priorities total. In simple terms, these are your 3 or 4 most important projects that you're going to own this quarter. It doesn't mean you'll be doing all the work. In some cases, you will do most of the work. In other cases, you'll be more like a project manager or leader. Sometimes you'll be the one getting your hands dirty and executing. It varies depending on the priority. Now, everyone is on their own computer. Inevitably, someone will have zoned out and ask, "Where do I get that screen again?" At the top, hit the circle with the plus sign. How do I do this? You're also training them on how to use Bloom Growth software to add quarterly priorities. You're making sure each person gets to 3 or 4 priorities. If someone wants to take on 5, it's okay. Just say, "I want these to be your most important special projects for the quarter. I also want you to have enough support and visibility so your teammates can help you win all quarter long." 3 or 4 is ideal, but if you really need to take 5, that's fine. If you're a fractional executive here, maybe 2 is the right number for you. Be flexible, facilitate, inspire, and keep things moving. Provide Bloom Growth software training as needed, making sure everyone is getting their priorities set. Ensure their specific, measurable outcomes are clear. Sometimes they'll really weenie out on defining those outcomes. Sometimes you're gonna have to sit next to them, kneel down if you need to, and say, "Hey, let's make this measurable. Let's add some numbers here." This can't be vague. If they still aren't listening, I sometimes gently call them out from the front of the room. "Hey, Fred, can you make your second priority more specific? It probably needs some kind of numbers in there." Or, "Sally, you've got 2 priorities here that aren't specific enough. Could you go back and add those specifics?" You decide if you want to call people out in front of their peers or if you prefer to whisper a reminder as you work your way around the room. It all depends on your style and the dynamics of the group. What's truly important is that you're guiding them to set the most inspiring, relevant, and best set of quarterly priorities they've ever done, period. I don't care if they've been doing any other OS for decades. This is only the second time you're doing it with them, but by following these instructions, they're going to end up with the best quarterly priorities they've ever set. The expectation here is nothing less than that. My minimum expectation for you as a Bloom Growth coach is that every single time you're with your client, it results in the best, most relevant, simple set of quarterly priorities that move their business forward. You are the game master, getting this done in 2 hours or less with priorities that are the best they've ever set. That's what you need to master. This is something you're going to do every time you're with your clients, except for day 30 and day 60. It's a process that's worth mastering because once you do, you can have fun with it. You can be lighthearted, laughing, joking, and just moving smoothly. Once you're done setting the quarterly priorities, check this item off. Remember to let people go use the bathroom and grab coffee at regular intervals. Be kind and be practical. Let's go to the O&O List Clean-up. Everybody please, eyes on the monitor, pull up the O&O list in Bloom Growth. It's going to be huge. In some cases, it might have 100 items, not exaggerating. Sort it by owner and say, here's the deal. As fast as we can, we're going to delete 70% of these by hitting the Solve button. We're going to take 15% of them and put them in the parking lot. That's the back burner, where they may become a quarterly priority on April 5th. When we do this again, the other 15% will stay in your weekly Bloom meeting. On day 90, we're doing this split, 70% deleted, 15% moved to the parking lot, and 15% remain in the weekly meeting. We will do this every time, starting on your first quarterly, and we'll keep refining this approach. In this example, you're going to guide them to say, 70% of these items are going to get deleted, 10% get delegated to a department team where they can turn it into a quarterly priority, 15% go on the back burner, the parking lot, where it could be a quarterly priority in 90 days, and 15% will stay in your weekly Bloom meeting. But remember, for day 90, they haven't rolled out these priorities to the department teams yet. So you'll instruct, 70% get deleted, 15% go to the back burner or a parking lot, and 15% stay here. Really encourage them to eliminate that 70%, putting a lot more onto the parking lot or out of the way so that your weekly meeting can focus on executing KPIs, quarterly priorities, company headlines, and last week's to-dos. There shouldn't be any large strategic projects lingering in the weekly meeting. If it's truly a big strategic project and important, ask, why didn't we choose it as a quarterly priority? If no one chose it, it's likely not that important. If it is important, make it a quarterly priority. If not, let it go to the parking lot. You might need to apply a little peer pressure to help them let go of things for the next 90 days. Remind them that they've already chosen their most important priorities. You're always focusing on what's most important, not what's interesting, urgent, or easy. Once the O&O list is cleaned up, come back and powerfully check it off the list. All right, let's go over Affirm and Finalize the ideal leadership team structure. This is one more of the things that you're going to be sharing at the all-org gathering training. Now, you're not going to use the workbook here. You're going to put it on the screen inside the Bloom Growth software, and you're going to facilitate a conversation that runs through the boxes first, or the seats, then the roles and responsibilities. Those are the bullet points. And finally, the names. They've been sitting with these roles for 90 days. If they haven't reached the point where they can call things what they are and be really vulnerable and humble and honest, this is the moment. I once did a 90-day session in which I ended up just drawing logical conclusions. I had a call with the integrator and a call with the visionary both in the 10 days before the session, and the chart had come up. I knew where my client was on this, so I wasn't taking a risk out of nowhere. I had a good feel for where both the visionary and the integrator stood. So when we got to the seats, I was like, I think we're all in agreement that the seats are the seats, right? These are the 4 direct reports to the person running the business, for all the logical reasons we've been talking about for the last 90 days. I think this room is completely in agreement on this. Can I get a show of hands or a wink or a nod? Let's just make sure we're on. Okay, great. So these are the seats, awesome. Next, let's go through one of the seats at a time and tweak these roles and responsibilities. In the session I did, we spent 40, maybe 50 minutes, an enormous amount of time making these roles and responsibilities perfect. We went through every single seat, every single bullet point. We mapped common sense onto them. Like, if this person's accountable for X, doesn't it make sense they'd also be accountable for X plus 1? Aren't these the same types of direct reports they've had? Wouldn't this require the same kind of skill set? Doesn't it make sense to combine these things? While working through roles and responsibilities, I switch gears between facilitating by asking questions, driving the conversation, and making statements. You'll need to find your own balance between facilitating and driving it. If I hadn't driven the discussion, we could have easily spent 2 hours on it. For me, driving it allowed us to cover everything in 40 to 50 minutes, which was totally worth it for the session. That detailed work was valuable, and knowing the top 2 leaders in the room beforehand is what allowed me to manage it so effectively. So go through that in detail. We made it perfect, and then we move on to the questions. There's a list of questions we use for this in the facilitation guide. It's getting better all the time. Currently, it's about 17 questions. After you go through and do your best work, maybe 80% of the work on roles and responsibilities have this list of questions printed out. You're going to run through them. Half of the questions will probably already have been handled. The other half will be interesting and will lead to more tweaks based on the questions. Then, make sure everything is fully fit for presentation to the whole organization. Remember, it's a blueprint for the remodel of the leadership team. It's not something we're moving this coming on Monday. Rather, cash flow will dictate how fast we move toward this ideal future. Most of the time, when I get clear on my ideal future, I want to move toward it as fast as possible. Similarly, most leadership teams will want to move toward this ideal future within the next 6 to 12 months from where they are today. Remember, when you started creating it on day 1, you said a year from day 1, which means about 9 months from now, from day 90. Also, it's prudent to say out loud that one major people move per quarter is what most cultures can handle. One major move a quarter is a responsible amount of change. Then you're going to say, okay, let's get the names in the boxes. So then you move on to the names. It's seats, roles, and responsibilities, and then names. Some names are going to be easy to put in boxes, and some will be hard. There might even be people in the room who don't have a box, or 2 people qualified for the same box. You're gonna have to facilitate through that. You're gonna have an open, honest conversation. Again, you'll need to find a balance between facilitating and driving it. Your goal is to reach a place where everything is 100% correct. The current people in the seats and the roles that are still yet to be filled. One of the other people in the room may have their name in an unfilled seat for now, and it'll likely be their second or third role. It's usually the common sense choice, of course. Then you're going to say, okay, now let's prioritize these people moves. 1, 2, 3, 4, however many there are. Do you guys have the cash flow and bandwidth to make this first people move this quarter? Could we make this a quarterly priority? A couple of people might agree, and I'll check with the boss, finance person, or whoever handles the budget. Is there a budget for this? This will be a 6-figure outside hire. And then to HR. Do you have the capacity to get the ball rolling this week? We need job descriptions written and ads placed within 7 days of today if we're going to proceed. Also, remember that any quarterly priority related to hiring usually has 3 milestones, which you can guide them on. Either the person's going to have their first day of work by our next session, or they're going to have accepted an offer, or you'll have had 3 qualified interviews by then. It all depends on how fast you can move. If the person has accepted an offer or has already had their first day by then, bring them to the first quarterly to our offsite. It's the perfect way to onboard new leaders. So you get to the place where you've now agreed on the seats, the roles and responsibilities, and the people. Everything is fit for presentation. You've been through those 17 thought-provoking questions, pressure testing the whole thing. Now you've put together a hiring roadmap or a people move roadmap. You've prioritized it, mapped it out, and decided 1 major people move this quarter, 1 the next quarter, and 1 the quarter after. By the time it's exactly 1 year since we started Bloom Growth, we'll have built this dream team. Remember, this is the team intended to double or triple this business as soon as possible. You need to get the team in place before that growth happens. That's the game we're playing. This process should leave them feeling inspired and give them the fortitude needed to make these moves. They'll need to have some difficult conversations, disappoint some people, find the budget, and secure the cash to make it all happen. This is what we're doing, building the dream team for the future to double or triple this business as soon as we can. You've got to invest and build the team first, then the growth comes. As I'm making this video, now that we're through the chart conversation, I feel a sense of relief. It feels so good to be through that conversation. The chart discussion is one of the trickiest things you'll facilitate as a growth coach. And now you've worked through it, Bloom Day 1, 30, 60, and finally Bloom Day 90. You've made some inspiring decisions, some of which have been hard, some of which have been easy. But one way or another, you've helped this team get clear on their ideal future. Most of it was their ideas. You drove it a little, but you didn't do it for them. And they've now created an inspiring hiring, firing, or people move roadmap that's going to get their dream team in place so they can double or triple their growth as fast as possible. What an amazing amount of value you've brought to this whole leadership team and, consequently, to their company and their families. Take a moment to rejoice in that and let go of any lingering anxiety. Awesome. Race back up to the top and check off Affirm and Finalize ideal leadership team structure. Now, we're going to dig into the Elevate Relationships section. Let's start talking about what you have in the room and the client workbook for Bloom Day 90. This page is all we're adding to the client workbook. It's just there for reference. You'll also have your own version with Coach Notes, which is a different version of the client workbook. This one gives you everything you need to have thought about in advance, the key headlines and messages you need to land, and any homework if applicable. That covers the core content. I believe you are familiar by now with how we've structured the facilitation guide around these 3 color-coded topics. Anything in blue explains why a given module is included. It gives you the rationale and context so you understand its purpose when working with clients. Anything in green is suggested language to help you introduce exercises and transition between them. You don't need to use this word for word, it's there for you to internalize and make your own. Lastly, anything in orange includes pro tips, tricks, and suggestions, things that can enhance your facilitation. This might be useful prompt questions for when an exercise starts to lose momentum or if idea generation slows down. Then we have 2 key prompts for you to think about ahead of setting up the session. We are going to hold people to account, and we're going to reflect on what we did in the 30 days prior and ensure that people report out. For this session, given how much we have to cover, we're choosing not to make the report out mandatory. However, if you're facilitating a day 90 session, and over the course of the day you happen to catch up on time, let's say you have 10 extra minutes, then I strongly encourage you to do a report out to maintain consistency. But until we optimize and improve for now, we're skipping the report out. The reason I bring this up is that I would normally send a reminder 5 working days in advance, prompting everyone to prepare their report out. However, since we're not requiring it at the moment, sending that reminder might come across as unnecessary or confusing. So for now, I suggest skipping it. Now, regarding environmental requirements, there are 2 things to keep in mind. First, when organizing the room, try to ensure that if there's a table, it can be moved. If the table is immovable, there should at least be enough space to the side to form a circle. As a general rule of thumb, aim for enough room so that chairs can be spaced 10 to 12 inches apart, preventing people from feeling crowded. If it's not possible, that's okay, but that's the goal. The second thing that will happen on day 90 is signing the North Star. When this happens, you'll need to take a team photo. We want you to be in the photo, not just the photographer, and we also don't want an awkward selfie where the CEO's head is half cut off. Plan ahead by reaching out to the client's admin team, or if you're in a hotel, someone from the hotel staff, so they're ready at that point in the agenda to take the photo. You don't want to be scrambling around, running out into the hallway, trying to find a random person to take a photo. It needs to be seamless, so I encourage you to identify someone in advance to handle that. Now we're moving into the actual content, starting with the welcome back. This serves 2 purposes. First, to transition them into the room and get them fully present, and second, to emphasize the significance of today, particularly the signing ceremony and its messaging. Normally, I'd say that this session is also about reconnecting them to the energy and momentum from the last elevation session. But for this one, we're not focusing on that unless you have extra time. You'll introduce the session, set the tone, and acknowledge that this is a significant symbolic moment. Something along the lines of, "This is a key milestone, and I'm looking forward to doing this with you today." Then we move straight into creating the space, forming the circle, which is a non-hierarchical, intentional action that sets the stage for what's ahead. Once everyone is in the space and you've acknowledged that everyone is present and equal, go directly into the confidentiality reminder. Look for a quick confirmation that everyone agrees to maintain confidentiality. Then let's go straight into the breathing exercise. The pace here is important. This is not a long, drawn-out group hug session. It's a quick and focused way to bring everyone into the right mindset for what's next. The reason we're breathing is 2 reasons. One is people have overstimulated brains and nervous systems. When we breathe, that depresses it. And as you breathe deep, you drive oxygen to the brain. That in turn helps regulate your emotions. It also drives greater clarity in thinking. You become much more present. And the second reason is we want to create rituals around elevation. We want to have a psychological short circuit that ushers us into this space. I'm going to do a quick demonstration of the breathing. We're going to do a variation of box breathing. Box breathing is normally you inhale for 4, hold for 4, and then exhale for 4. So we're going to inhale for 4, hold, and exhale for 4. We're going to do that 4 times. You will invite people to sit down and ask them to have a really upright posture. One of the things I suggest is to imagine you've got a rope at the top of your head and you just pull that up and it immediately makes everybody sit up. Feet are planted on the ground. I encourage people to relax their hands, usually making a small fist and putting them on their knees. Then they close their eyes. You'll give them 2 or 3 seconds to settle. And then you take your tonality down, you slow the pace down of your voice. Then you say, now we'll begin, and then it is inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. Exhale. 3, 4, and so on. You do that 4 times. At the end, don't just say, all right, everyone, eyes open, and all the rest of it, because you'll just shock them and totally ruin what you've just done. You give them a few seconds just to pause with their eyes closed. And then you invite them to slowly open their eyes. Now, when they do that, they'll look around at each other and feel a bit silly. Unlike day 60, when they open their eyes, you're then not going to say to them, how does that feel? And all the rest of it. That was more just about helping them cement in their mind that breathing actually is additive to their psychology. Instead, we're going to focus, now that they're centered, on reconnecting with Bloom Day 60. You'll ask them, what were those moments of connection, growth, and insight? What stood out for you? You want to try and get 2 or 3 people talking. This is only a minute or 2, but what we're trying to do is short-circuit the brain. We're trying to bring them back to that positive glow when they left Bloom Day 1, straight back into it, rather than having to use the exercises to rebuild it. Remind them about their reflections they made from the previous session. I always recommend to take notes of those reflections. You should have them with you, and you can play this language back to them. After the breathing exercise, you'll move directly into the North Star signing ceremony. Remember, you don't want to be scrambling around, running out into the hallway, trying to find a random person to take a photo. It needs to be seamless, so please once again identify someone in advance to handle that. This session is about fully committing to what they've created, not just on their own, but with you over the last 90 days. It's a moment they'll be able to look back on and say, remember how slightly awkward things felt when we first came together just 90 days ago? Now, we're standing in front of something truly meaningful and iconic. Earlier in the session agenda, they finalized the 3-year growth plan covering all aspects, including the North Star. The North Star includes the what, how, why, values, and 5-year vision. These elements go far deeper than just annual priorities. This is the foundation that will inspire people to get out of bed each morning. It represents the shared direction that will lead the organization forward. This moment is important. When I've done this with other leadership teams in the past, I've made a theatrical deal out of it. For example, when I worked with a global leadership exec team at a Fortune 500 level business, I took them to a literal cathedral for this moment. I created massive symbolism around it. Now, that's probably overkill for most of the teams you'll be working with, and you'll likely find something more meaningful and relevant for your clients, but the point remains, create something iconic in their minds that lasts a lifetime. When introducing this moment, there are 3 key things to highlight. First, acknowledge what they've achieved in just 90 days, from nothing to where they are now, and congratulate them on such a meaningful accomplishment. Second, recognize that when people look back a year or 2 from now, some will describe this as a refounding of their business. They'll see it as a defining moment, everything before this, and then everything after, marked by a performance-driven transformation they couldn't have imagined before Bloom Growth. We didn't just create a compelling, rational story, we inspired people to get up out of the trench and take the next hill. This is one of those moments. The third point, which is just as important as the first 2, is that this is both an individual and collective commitment. After today, there are no ifs, buts, or maybes. From this moment forward, we are one team, one voice, one narrative. We stand together for this, and we will lead this organization forward. You want to drive home the idea that this is final, almost like signing in blood. Everyone in the room should feel a surge of commitment, a sense of being all in. They should walk away roused and ready to go. Once you've built that energy to the point where they're practically ready, you'll move into the actual signing. You'll have the North Star template with you. I strongly recommend printing it out in triplicate on the highest quality paper you can find. Why 3 copies? Because I guarantee you'll mess up the writing at least once. 3 copies should do the trick in case this happens. Slowly and deliberately write out the North Star. You might wonder, Will people get bored while they wait? No, this is part of the theater of the moment. It's part of the ceremony, watching every word take shape. If your handwriting is completely unreadable, feel free to invite someone from the team to do it for you. I've done that before when I wasn't doing so well, and it worked out great. Bring high-quality pens, ideally brand new so you don't run into issues with dried-out nibs or smudging. You want the experience to feel significant, not distracted by little annoyances. Then, one by one, have each person come forward to sign. Make it feel like they're stepping up to receive a medal or an award, something important. As they do, use powerful, evocative language. Think about the legacy you are creating right now as you sign this. It's very impactful. It's very symbolic. Once everyone is signed, this is the moment where you say, "This is such an important step." Today marks the beginning of a new chapter. One chapter closes and another opens. From this day forward, this artifact will serve as a daily reminder for you and your people of what you're truly working toward. It represents the defining aspiration of your business. To reinforce this, there are two things they should do after the session. First, they should get the signed document framed. Ideally, they'll display it in the CEO's office, their lobby, or wherever they feel it holds the most meaning. The second step is to capture this moment with a photo, cementing the commitment they've made. And this is where your beautifully organized photographer steps in. No professional camera is needed. A mobile phone works just fine. They take the photo, ensuring the moment is documented. One additional suggestion, optional but highly recommended, is to take this a step further by printing and framing the photo. A 5 by 7-inch photo holder works well, with one side displaying the picture of the team and the other featuring the North Star document. If there are 5 leadership team members, get 5 printed and personally hand one to each of them. This creates a meaningful connection point and reinforces the relationship. Remember, you're only at day 90. This gives you an excuse to check in with each individual, keeping you engaged and maintaining the relationship. It's not required, but it's a great way to stay connected and keep the momentum going. After the photo, you reinforce the significance of what they've achieved today. This is something that will stay with us, a lasting reminder of what we've built together. As an additional perk, include a 5 by 7 frame for yourself to show other teams that embark on the Bloom growth journey. You can say to them on Bloom Day 1, "See this North Star document?" You will be creating one of these for your organization on day 90 as well. I cannot wait to share this legacy creating moment with you. From here, you transition into the key messages for the organization. The idea behind crafting key messages is while a lot of great work was going into the all-org gathering, much of it remained highly rational, focused on facts, strategies, and the actions the business would take, but it didn't necessarily speak to the heart. Help these leaders prepare to deliver both types of messages. It's about balance. We need to provide clarity, but we also need to inspire. That's what this module is about. Now, clearly, the concept of head and heart is a very simplified way of looking at messaging. It's not necessarily backed by neuroscience in terms of how we process information, but it's a useful framework. People tend to lean more heavily toward the rational, so this is about making a deliberate effort to balance that with emotional resonance. Let's say a company's 5-year vision is we will be the world leader in AI-driven healthcare, helping 1 billion people live happier, healthier, longer lives by 2040. The head message for that could be something pithy, like through AI-driven healthcare, we will help 1 billion lives. That's clear. I understand what you're trying to achieve. But does it make me want to get out of bed in the morning? Not necessarily. A heart message might be something like, no one should die from a disease we can prevent. That's different. That's something I can get fired up about. That resonates on an emotional level. I'm sure you'll come up with better examples than the ones I just wrote down quickly, but having your own versions of these messages, ones that are powerful for you, is key to understanding the difference. Once we introduce the idea of head and heart messaging, we want them to start crafting their own. The goal here follows the Pareto principle. How do we get 80% of the value with 20% of the effort? We're not going to perfect everything in this session. There will be time between day 90 and the all-org gathering to refine, tweak, and improve. Right now, we're just getting the core material down. Since the North Star consists of 5 aspects, what, how, why, values, and 5-year vision, I would assign each one to a different person to develop both head and heart messages. If there are 7 team members but only 5 components, the why and the 5-year vision tend to generate the most creativity and energy, so you can assign those to pairs. They'll usually come up with plenty of ideas. If the team is smaller, what and how can be combined, and one person can handle both. Then, give them 5 minutes to write as many ideas as possible. Tell them to remove their judgment filter and just write. Let it flow, almost like a stream of consciousness, capturing as many potential messages as they can for both head and heart. While they do this, I usually go up to a whiteboard or a flip chart and draw 2 quick columns, head and heart, to capture anything they share when the time is right. After the 5 minutes before they start giving me all their raw content, I have them pair up first to do a first pass, a first bit of improvement before it's shared with the group. I give them another 5 minutes, 2 to 2.5 minutes each, to work through some of those core messages and get feedback. Feedback has to be actionable. What we want is for someone to say, if you change word X to word Y, it would be more inclusive of all of our teams and would have greater impact. It needs to be about clarity, impact, and giving people actionable feedback. If the message is completely off, isn't communicating anything, or isn't inspiring anything, then maybe it should be dropped. They share ideas, hone and enhance them, and the goal is to get them down to 2 or 3 strong messages per head and heart for their particular part of the North Star. Then we bring them back together, and they read them out. As they do this, I'm not applying any judgment, but sometimes people will hesitate, saying, I have this one, but I'm really not sure. Since I'm trying to keep the pace moving, I use a few prompts to help them filter faster. If they're unsure about a message, I ask, does it clearly explain the importance? If not, they should remove it. Does it inspire or connect us? If not, they should drop it. We get all the content laid out, and then the exercise is to take each component, the what, the how, the why, and as a group, focus on what is the most powerful messaging for head and heart. It's not about getting it down to just one message per head and heart, but making sure what they have is strong and resonates. If there's 2 for the heart, that's fine. This isn't ideological, but we're just trying to get down to what's the most powerful, clear messaging we can get to so that they've got something that they can actually engage people with consistently and as a team. It'll probably take you a couple of minutes. It's a very fast exercise. If you allow them to get deeply reflective, it will turn into a 4-hour exercise. What is the heart of this message? We can work on the wordsmithing after this. So you roll through all of that, and then there's one last thing that we want to do with them before we stop the message crafting, and it's something we call story anchors. The premise is, whenever you launch a vision, a new direction, or a new strategy, the cynics will go, we've heard it all before. You said something similar the last 7 times, and none of that came off. So why should I believe you? And it's basically about a credibility, authenticity, trust gap. And one of the simplest ways that you can bridge that is to find examples of what you're talking about already happening in the organization at a microcosm. So if the focus is something around innovation, being able to point to Max and his team, who have been doing some innovation work around some product innovation cycle that's led to benefits of XYZ, it's good to be able to say, we're doing this because we already are. Look, we're already achieving this in this area. We're just trying to do more of it. Or if it's around Agile, being able to point to Sarah and her team, who have moved to an Agile model and whose squads have been delivering value increment delivery 30% faster for the same input cost. Again, we're not talking about something we've never done before. We're already doing this. We're trying to make it real. And that really helps bridge that credibility. And whatever you talk about, you'll be able to find some stories inside the organization that bring it to life and make it real and make it easier as a sell for that leadership team to land this with the organization with impact. So you go back to the individual who was, let's say, looking after why, the person looking after how, and get them to think of those anchor stories. Just give them 2 or 3 minutes and they'll come up with something. 2 things that you'll need to be mindful of. Values is usually the hardest because it's usually 3 or 4 values, so you may wish to have a couple of people think about values for anchor stories. The other is that some genius will come up with a great anchor story for somebody else and will try to leap in and say, I've got your perfect story. Just get those people to sit on their hands a little bit and let the process go through. Then as we go through each of the anchor stories, give them a chance to land in. You will find that normally 80 to 90% of the content has a decent anchor story. A couple might require some scratching of heads. It's usually in the value space where that's the challenge. But get them to spend 2 or 3 minutes reading out their stories, get some improved stories, and write all of those down. Then what you've got is the core content for the messaging for the all-org gathering. So you've got the head and heart messages, you've got the story anchors. But what you want to make sure you do is do not leave that room without clarity about how it gets taken forward. Now, it could be one person in that group who puts their hand up to say, I will drive this, I will take the pen, I will work with you to iterate this and hone it. Or there could already be a marketing lead who is the natural home for this or event person for the all-org gathering. If it's somebody who's not in the room, then somebody else in the room has to take an action to go brief them. So do not let that slide through or get lost. Make sure somebody is locked into it. Make sure that's agreed, and then you can start to close out. Just remind them, well done. They should feel energized. Not only do they have this beautiful North Star that's signed and they're feeling good, but they also now know how they're going to engage people in both a rational and emotive way, in a fact and strategy way, as well as an inspiration and meaning way. So for them, this should feel really good. Your closeout should be full of enthusiasm about what they've achieved today. It's another moment to reflect, and if there's a nice anecdote about how nervous and unsure they were when they first met you on day 1 compared to now standing in front of this artifact on day 90, then highlight that. It's a literal visual reminder of everything they've accomplished in such a short time. You also want to make yourself part of that story because you're trying to keep yourself sticky in their journey. Then go into the usual reflection. Ask them about their takeaways. This is the stuff you write down for reconnection when you meet again for the first quarterly. After that, move into the homework. Homework consists of 2 parts. The first part is making sure they don't just rest on their laurels when it comes to the messaging. They need to keep internalizing it, enhancing it, honing it, testing it with each other, and working with marketing. But be clear, don't let marketing take this over. When marketing takes full control, the meaning often gets diluted, and the result can feel watered down and generic. Marketing can help enhance the impact, but this isn't a marketing exercise. This team created these messages, and they should remain in their words. That's something you can offer as a caution to them so they stay mindful of it. The key is making sure they take the time to get fully prepared for the all-org gathering, speaking as one voice with one narrative. The second part of the homework is making sure they continue working on everything they've started. They've just gone through a whole series of exercises, the stories they make up, the letter to themselves with the future roadmap, the relationship traps, the energy audit. These weren't meant to be one-off exercises. They are things they should be continuously working on. These sessions are catalysts for them to develop themselves and their vision collectively, outside of the room. So remind them that when they get to the first quarterly, they'll want to check in on how those things are going, what they've been doing, and the impact it's making on their lives, both professionally and personally. Bringing back some of this content in the future is important to reinforcing that this wasn't just a one-and-done experience. This is part of their journey. Then you close out and transition them back into the rest of the Bloom session. I would say that now is the time to disband the circle to fully bookend elevation. I recognize that some of you prefer working in that circle, or you may not want the hassle of moving your client team around again. If that's the case, I completely understand. But from a purist perspective, we want to bookend the elevation process, so ideally, you would physically close the circle and return to the previous setup. That concludes this section. You can return to page 1 to check off Elevate Relationships. Let's do this last couple things before we wrap up. Hopefully you're looking at the clock and you've got a full 90 minutes left, a luxurious amount of time to complete the agenda on time. For the all-org gathering, I get up and write on the whiteboard again. You can have them fill in some details here. It might be helpful to have those arrows that I love drawing, the scattered arrows representing the energy of the organization, and then the arrows all pointing in one direction to symbolize alignment. This is the kind of thing I often draw on the board during this meeting. I like opening up the all-org gathering with that visual showing how we're all aligning, so people know what we're aiming for over the next hour. The first 10 minutes, you'll start by going through the growth plan, the what, the how, the why, and the 5-year vision. This includes the 3-year future, 1-year goals, and the new company 90-day plan. Note that you're only sharing the top 5, 6, or 7 company-wide priorities, not departmental ones. This part should take about 20 minutes. Next, you cover the future ideal leadership structure, explain the what, how, and why, the hiring roadmap, and why it's in a really inspiring future. What it will mean for people, which departments will report where. This should take around 10 minutes. The leadership team will have taken a quarterly priority to create their department's seats, roles, and responsibilities. In the all-org gathering that occurs after the organization's first quarterly, they will share the fully built-out org chart with the entire organization as part of the report out of their quarterly priorities. Next, move on to core values. Start with shout-outs. Since they haven't yet been trained to bring their own, the leadership team should prepare a bunch. Each leader might come with 5 to 10 shout-outs. These should be public and specific, like, I want to give Sally a shout out for living this core value, especially last week when she did that thing. The focus shouldn't be on leaders giving shout outs to each other, it's about sharing the love with the room. Core value shout outs should take another 10 minutes. Finally, you'll talk about the plans for the departments running on Bloom Growth OS and using the Bloom Growth software. You'll probably demo what a weekly meeting looks like and explain how we're going to get these tools in place. In the client packet, there are 2 versions of the all-org gathering. There's this one, which is the version appropriate for what they're going to do in the next 2 to 10 days, right after Bloom Day 90. Then there's the all-company gathering agenda for everyone, every time after their first Bloom quarterly. For future all-company gatherings and all subsequent quarters, the first thing you do at the all-org gathering is have the leadership team report on how successful they were at accomplishing the previous company quarterly priorities. The team will start by reviewing the previous company quarterly priorities before enrolling everyone in the new quarterly priorities. The differences in that agenda are that it starts with reviewing the previous company quarterly priorities. This is how the leadership team holds themselves accountable in front of all their people. Quickly, in about 3 minutes, you'd say, oh, we're 5 out of 7. That's this percentage. Our goal was 80%, but we only got 72%. Not proud of that, but we're not here to make excuses. Then you introduce the new priorities for the next quarter. So it's 3 minutes on the past, and then you give 1 minute each for someone to sell the new company quarterly priorities. Whoever is accountable for a priority is the one to stand up and sell it. This is what this thing is. It's going to be super cool. We're going to do it like this, and we'll need help from all these departments, this and this and this. This is going to make a big difference in our future. Our clients have been asking for this forever, blah, blah, blah. Okay, 1 minute each. Each of the 5 to 7 new company priorities gets presented this way. Then you go through the growth plan, the org chart, then core values and shoutouts, and finally you move into Q&A. This is the structure for each quarterly session. Also, consider changing the name of this gathering. All gathering can be renamed to suit your company culture. Town hall is a popular choice, but can sound political. State of the company is commonly used within other operating systems, whereas all hands meeting is probably the least political or OS specific. Ultimately, let your client choose what fits best. I tend to ramble through these choices and then let them choose. Often they already have a term they use. I have a client that calls it free food for everybody, or whatever they like. This is where you gather people for breakfast or lunch. You shut down all the machines, no client calls allowed. It's 1 hour, once a quarter, to get everyone on the same page. Sweet. Now go up and check off the all-company gathering training. You're doing a speed version of the Bloom Weekly Meeting agenda. Ask the team what is working and what's not working with the Bloom Weekly Meeting. Make sure you address any pain points and strongly encourage questions so that this is a conversation. We are reviewing this quickly. Check in. You have about 45 seconds each. This is a vulnerability thing where you allow yourself to be known each week. Come prepared with your most meaningful thing personally and your most meaningful thing professionally, and be ready to explain why it's meaningful. It can be the impact, the significance, or simply the why for you. It's your job to let yourself be known as a member of this team. It's not your teammates' job to get to know you. This is where every week you peel your own onion and let the team get to know your authentic self. Quarterly priorities. This is not a project management check-in. If it's already done or on track, you don't need to discuss it. Focus on what's off track. Mark things off track early and often during the planning period. At this stage, 2/3 of the way through, anything that isn't 100% on track should be marked as such. Be honest with yourself. Are you really 66% of the way to being done as written? If not, it needs to be marked off track. Remember, you still have 1/3 of the planning period left, so there is time to adjust, but first, let's get honest and mark what's off track. Every week, pick 2 quarterly priorities with the biggest opportunities or obstacles. Click the Context to Our button in the software and add them to the O&O list. KPIs. Again, this isn't a project management check-in. Don't mention what's in the green. Focus on the numbers that are in the red and those that aren't meeting the weekly goals. Engage in a group conversation about the biggest obstacles or opportunities to add to the O&O list. This requires a group of strategic leaders to really engage. Don't lean back by letting one or two leaders identify what should go on the O&O list. Everyone should be involved. Aim for robust, high-energy conversations, not arguments, digging for at least 2 O&Os to add to the list. Getting to the root of the issue and creating meaningful to-dos is what gets your quarterly priorities and KPIs back to green and on track. Headlines. Hopefully, each leader has been adding 3 headlines per week so that we have 25 pre-populated items in Bloom Growth. You can add these using the top navigation bar or mobile app, along with to-dos and O&Os. Speed read through the 20 items. It's like drinking from a fire hose of information. The goal is to keep the whole team in the know. It's important that the leadership team is aware of everything meaningful, big or small, personal or professional, and this creates a unified impression for employees who interact with them. The leadership team is in the know about all kinds of things that are going on. 90% of these headlines should be good news. The other 10% might reveal opportunities or obstacles to add to the O&O list or trigger a to-do. To-dos. We're shooting for 90% completion. The whole team is skimming the to-do list, digging beyond simple checkboxes to find out if there's more to discuss. Celebrate if you hit 90%, snaps or claps are welcome. To-dos are the most sacred promises you make as a team. The most meaningful ones usually stem from solving something in a permanent, inspiring way in your last weekly meeting. Often, incomplete to-dos indicate an obstacle or opportunity that should be added to the O&O list. O&O list. By this point, you will have added 2 new O&Os from quarterly priorities, 2 from KPIs, 1 from headlines, and 1 from to-dos, plus 6 more throughout the week. Sort the list by most recent in the software and pick the top 3. Always pick by importance, never by what's interesting, urgent, or easy. Pick 3 at a time because it helps your brain start processing them subconsciously. Then you'll start 3Ding. 3D stands for Discover, Discuss, and Decide. First, discover. Concisely state in 1 to 2 sentences what we're talking about, including the desired outcome, whether it's a decision, sharing information, or gathering info. Get to the root cause, determine who owns the decision, and go slow. Next, discuss. Keep the discussion focused on the desired outcome. Be open, honest, and humble for the greater good. Everyone fully participates regardless of their role. Transition to decide once it's clear without going in circles. Go fast. Finally, you'll move to decide. Go slow to ensure meaningful, permanent, inspiring decisions. Capture every action as a specific to-do. Aim for a solution that could involve changing a process, a person, a strategy, stopping something, delegating, or automating. Be honest and work for the greater good. Show up not as your department head, but as a strategic leader. We want finance involved in sales conversations just as much as sales in operations conversations, cross-functional, strategic discussions for the greater good. There are 6 types of permanent, inspiring decisions. It could be a change in process, a change in a person, a change in our strategy, something we choose to stop doing or say another way, or strategic quitting. It could be delegating to someone else, like a regular employee, contractor, vendor, or AI, and the last type of permanent, inspiring decision is choosing to automate. Once you're working with the O&O list, you'll pick the top 3 items. Again, pick the top 3 and always prioritize by what's most important, not by what's interesting, urgent, or easy. This is crucial, so make it part of your vernacular every time you 3D. We prioritize by most important, not the interesting, urgent, or easy. Wrap up by discussing how the meeting could be improved next week. Add those insights to the notes and bring them up at the next week's check-in. These foundational tools will provide increasing value as you perfect them. We're on a journey. I will observe your Bloom weekly meeting halfway between today's session and your first Bloom quarterly around day 120. The goal is to master this process so that you can teach the rest of your organization. Let's work to make it as perfect as we can so that you are ready to train your departments in a masterful way. These are the most valuable 90 minutes of your entire work week. It aligns all the most important things in the organization and forces clear decisions on what matters most. You'll discover, discuss, and decide. and someone will take a to-do to put the decision into action. You'll check in on it 52 times a year, ensuring that the business constantly moves forward. When this meeting is run effectively, it's amazing how it can accelerate the most important priorities, done well 52 times a year. Move through this agenda quickly and focus your energy on questions from the team. Let them guide where more time should be spent. Allow the conversation to be led by the leaders in the room. Solicit questions, get them to engage, and create a space where they feel comfortable participating. Your role is to facilitate, be flexible, and ensure it's a collaborative, open conversation. Be curious and genuinely listen to what's not working. Great. Now go up and check off Bloom Weekly Meeting and the wrap-up. I know we haven't done the wrap-up yet, but we're about to do it. All right, let's get on to it. We'll be done in 15 minutes. What's your favorite part or the most valuable part of today? If you need to, look back at the agenda and say something meaningful and generous. What's the number one thing we can do better at your first Bloom Quarterly? I'm going to write down all your answers, and I'm going to bring them up at the beginning of the first quarterly. Write down a meaningful compliment for the person on your left. We're going to go around the room and do that. You either have to tell them to skip you or include you. You decide. Then, give them their homework and let them know that you're going to attend their weekly meeting via Zoom in about 4 weeks. Take a to-do in front of them to send the demo. Ask, okay, what day and time do you run your weekly Bloom meeting? Great, I'm going to find a Monday at 9:30 where I have an opening about 4 or 5 weeks from now. I'll communicate with you to make sure you're running it at that time. I'll need the Zoom details. I'll sit like a church mouse through 75 minutes of your meeting, then give you rapid-fire feedback for 15 minutes. This gives you about 3 to 4 weeks to polish up your Bloom meeting. Sound good? If you're in person and you've got the time, go ahead and sit in directly. And then take a couple of leadership team members out to lunch afterward. You're building relationships to get referrals, right? Provide extra service, show up in person if you can. If you're not in the same city, Zoom will still work great. And remember, this is the time to ask for referrals. At every single session, with every single client, from now to eternity, you should ask for them. You're receiving all this positive energy and compliments, sharing thoughtful insights for the people on their left, talking about the next steps and the upcoming Bloom meetings. Take a deep breath, put your hands on the table and say, I am so delighted with how well you've launched the system. This has been a whirlwind these last 90 days, and you guys have been absolutely great. I want to remind you that my business grows 100% through happy clients like you. All it takes is an email introduction between the owner of a business and me. I'll handle the rest from there. You can also count on me to say the most generous, flattering things about you and your team to everyone you introduce me to. I truly appreciate every single introduction you make. The sharing of your network isn't taken for granted. It means a lot. As I'm growing this business, it would be really amazing if I could get an introduction from one of you, maybe even this week. If you want, we could even do it tomorrow or sit around and do it before you walk out today. Whatever your style is, just get comfortable with it. But remember to ask for these referrals every single time. It makes all the difference. It doesn't make any sense to avoid asking for referrals. I had a magical experience with asking for referrals during a session with a client. I told them, hey, before we go, I just have one more thing. I want all of you to know that it's okay for you to ask for referrals from your clients. Then I paused and looked at everyone and said, and I'm going to show you how to do it right now. People started to laugh, kind of like popcorn, one after the other. As they realized what I was about to do, it made it really fun. And then I went on with, my business grows 100% through referrals. One of the guys had just joined a forum, so I tapped him on the shoulder and said, this would be a great opportunity to share with your forum mates. I kept it simple, light, and fun like that, and then asked for the email introduction. It works, so please do it after every single session. I actually got a referral after day 1 with one of my clients, after just day 1. So please, if you have an issue with this or any hesitation or fear, bring it up in the Bloom Growth Coach Facilitation weekly meeting with the rest of the coaches. We need to work through this together. And that concludes Bloom Day 90. Thank you.